Are you looking to grow revenues, increase profitability, or obtain financing? If so, you came to the right place.
Running a business is all about leadership. How do you become a better leader? Learn from the successful entrepreneurs and business owners how to lead your organization more effectively. That's why we created Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business, to help you succeed with your host, Andrew Frazier, Business Growth Pro and CFO and founder of the Small Business Pro University. Every Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, we're joined by experienced entrepreneurs and business owners who share their secrets to success via live stream. Also, every Friday morning, we release a new podcast episode. Either way, you will learn about developing your business leadership skills from our roster of highly performing guest experts. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpru.com.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm your host, Andrew Frazier, and once again, we're here to talk about the most important thing you need to know as a business owner, and that's really about how to be a leader. That's really what your job is, that's what your role is, and that's how you make your business successful. So what we do is every week we touch on key topics and share information from guest experts and business owners just like you, so we can talk through some of the things that could be helpful for you to know to grow and improve your business. Very excited this week. We have our special guest as Marla Currie, and as you can see, our topic is business writing that gets results. She's the president of Tag on the Web, and she has significant experience in marketing and sales and really just being able to communicate effectively online and in other marketing formats. And today, more than ever, your most important job and the thing that's going to help your business survive is your marketing and sales. And one of the things that can lift your game and your marketing is how you communicate. How are you going to communicate with your customers in a way that you get results? Because at the end of the day, that's what's most important to entrepreneurs and business owners. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. How do you communicate more effectively to be able to get the results you need to survive, not just survive, and thrive in running your business? So tonight our guest is Marla Currie, and I'm going to bring her on so you can say hello to her, and we'll start chatting about small business. Hey Marla, how you doing? Welcome to Leadership Live at 8:05.
Thanks a lot, Andrew. Happy to be here.
Okay, great. I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you always have a lot going on, and you got a lot of clients to keep happy and keep them running well. But appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to not only just be here, but be here and share the knowledge and expertise that you have around
Absolutely.
communications.
Thank you.
So, really, before we get into the communications piece, it's always interesting and helpful to know where people are coming from, how they got where they are. Just tell us a little bit about, where you're from, a little bit about your journey and how you ended up where you are doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. I'm originally from Ohio, Dayton, Ohio. Born and raised there, and went to undergrad school at Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm a Spelman girl. And I did my master's at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. I've always been a writer. When I got my master's, I actually wanted to become a advertising copywriter. That was my original goal. But the salary for copywriters was about $6,000 less than for a business person. So I ended up on the business side, and it's been on the business side that I've done most of my writing and gained, that particular area of expertise and knowing how to write for business. So, as mentioned, I've always been a writer. I'm writing now. You talked about my clients. What's keeping me really busy right now are my own personal writing projects. After 5 years, I finally, just this past week, got a first draft of a book that I've been working on for 5 years. And I've also, over the COVID time period where there was, a lot of people, had time on their hands, I wrote four children's stories. So, yeah, I enjoy writing. It's my avocation, but it's also my profession.
One of the things that you mentioned, which is always interesting, is and unfortunately, a lot of times young people don't understand this till later that you know, different careers make different amounts of money, and
Exactly.
sometimes it's important to understand what you're getting into, and it was good that you were able to see the opportunity on the business side because a
Well,
lot of times people don't.
I actually thought that my goal was to get in and then switch over. But I found that I liked the business side. I did well on the business side. And I was able to vent that creative need in on business proposals and memos. And I've had a couple of bosses throughout the years come to me and say, "Wow, what a great memo!" I've had those kinds of experiences, and so again, writing is it's a pleasure for me. I really like it.
Okay, excellent. No, and business can be so many different things. I studied mechanical engineering, so I was the other spectrum. I went to school, and part of the reason I chose my school was because we didn't have to take a writing class.
And that's the thing too that always surprises me, that how difficult writing is for some people. They'll be, very smart in, a math or a science, but, ask them to write a short paragraph about what they did last summer and they're totally stumped. So, yeah, something as seemingly easy as writing can be quite challenging for a lot of people.
Right, it's all relative, but I realized how important it was. So I've developed very good writing skills
Excellent. Very good.
because you can't not do that if you're going to move forward.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
key
You
skill.
definitely can't be in business and not know how to write. A number of years ago, I taught college level business, and these were students that were juniors and seniors. And I remember this one kid. He was a great kid, had a great personality. I knew that he would go far, in a business kind of environment because he was very likable. And he did a paper, and I just could not believe it. It was a terrible paper. I mean, his spelling was bad. He was all over the place with his thinking, and so I pulled him aside and I said, let me give you a piece of advice. And he was like a senior, I think. I said, you know what? You're not. This is not going to work in the business world. You're going to have to do better than this. I don't know what you need to do, but you need some remedial classes on how to write. As soon as your boss or a client sees a letter from you, and there are tons of misspelled words, and there's no logic to how you're presenting your argument. You're going to be in trouble. And he basically said, "Oh, there's spell check. I won't worry about it." He's probably running some company now, some multi-billion-dollar company now. But yeah, at the time, his spelling and grammar was just horrific.
Right.
And schools now don't concentrate on that as much as they used to. I mean, when I was in school, there were spelling tests every week, and you'd be up at the blackboard diagramming sentences, and it was a whole different focus. Now, they've got software that does that. Grammarly will look at your document and tell you where the grammar is bad. Spell check will correct your spelling. But the problem is that ultimately, at some point, you are going to be standing in front of a room of people, up at a blackboard or up at a whiteboard, taking the notes, talking about some process or some procedure for a project, and you're already nervous, but now you've got 50 people in back of you looking at you. You can barely remember how to spell your own name, let alone words. So yeah, it's good to have spelling and grammar in your back pocket
Yeah.
for sure.
Right. And like you said, uh, it's very, very important because people's opinion of you many times is based on what you write. And,
Absolutely.
and a lot of people will know about you only because of what you wrote, and may not ever meet you, or you may not meet them, or even know they know anything about you. So I've learned to be very careful with you know with what I'm writing, and also writing and communication is really one of the most valuable things that you can do in terms of improving those and building those skills versus any other skills um, that you can focus on. So if you're not doing well there, that's a good place to start.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Writing is, I don't care what discipline you're in. At some point, you're going to have to sit down to a computer and write somebody an email, write a proposal, respond to a letter that you might have received. And it's basically just, that kind of skill that's, required just across the board. And when you're not comfortable with writing, it can really get you into trouble. People will get letters from the IRS and they'll just put them in a corner just because they're not comfortable with writing a qualified response. And they may have a good excuse for, why they didn't pay their taxes for the last 10 years. But, sitting down and actually writing it can be so daunting that, they end up getting into trouble about it.
yep, yep. So so you mentioned some of your background, but one of the things you became an entrepreneur and business owner even though you were a corporate executive. So talk to me about kind of how that happened and what made you make the change.
You know, my I actually come from a family of entrepreneurs. My dad was the only one who wasn't an entrepreneur, and he wasn't because he had 8 kids to feed, and so he had to have a steady job. But all of my uncles, they were insurance men. I have an aunt who was a clinical psychologist in private practice. They all had businesses, and so it's almost ingrained in me to be a business person. And I've had starts and fits with business, but I continue to chase that dream, and it is one that is one that has paid off certainly, to allow me to make the living that I do. But I'm always sort of looking for that next venture. I love being an entrepreneur.
Okay, excellent. So you know you have your company tag on the web, and wanted to with my business every 2 to 3 years my business totally changes
Mm,
from what it was
mm,
before,
right.
based on sort of where the market is, where the trends are, where my skills have developed. Talk to me about how your business has changed over the years since you started it.
Absolutely. Um, Tag on the Web is really a subdivision of my main company, which is called a Targeted Advertising Group. And Tag on the Web, it started out really as an SEO, search engine optimization company. That's what we started out doing. And then ultimately wasn't getting the kind of traction that I wanted to get with SEO. And so we sort of turned and started doing direct mail as a, the old fashioned, put it in the post office kind of direct mail. Had a little success with that, but it was very expensive, for clients, particularly because online was sort of taking off at that point. And so I would sort of change the focus. You might recall, Andrew, a couple of years ago, we were really pushing hard on a product called Marketing in a Box. And Marketing in a Box was a comprehensive, marketing product that, you got ads, you got media, you got technical SEO, which is, as opposed to marketing SEO, I'm always having to distinguish those two. Technical SEO is a service where we actually go behind your computer and look at your website files and make them attractive to search engines from a technical standpoint, not just, a marketing, what's on the page standpoint. And so that was a great product. People loved the name. I had the most difficult time trying to sell that product. And finally, after beating myself on the head, it was like, all right, this isn't going where I needed to go. Certainly not long term. And so I sort of changed as I personally started getting more interested in content development, and that's when we really sort of changed over that. Tag on the Web is a content generating agency. We write across the entire spectrum of business, everything from web content to marketing content to articles. We specialize in RFPs, as a matter of fact, and business proposals. So we're in that space now. I still dibble and dabble in tech. I had a number of technology clients, and I still like that area. And so, people will come to me and ask me if I will build them a website. But I've, worked on a lot of very high science websites, developing websites for, Ohio State University and different kinds of financial services companies, building platforms. And so, I really like that side of the business. But right now, Tag on the Web is focusing in on content generation, whereas the parent company, Targeted Advertising Group, does advertising for Fortune 500 companies.
Okay, excellent. Oh, so you've got a great background. You're doing some great things. We really want to learn more. So, we talked a little bit about, really 7 key communication types that are important for business owners to know and understand. So we're going to focus on that. But we're going to take a break real quick just to learn a little bit about the Small Business Pro University, which this show is produced out of. And we'll be right back with Marla Currie, and we're going to talk about 7 key communication types that you need to know as a business owner. Do you own your business, or does it own you? Is your business growing, and are you making enough money? As a business owner, there are so many things you need to know to become more successful. Hello, my name is Andrew Frazier, the Business Growth Pro and CFO. I created the Small Business Pro University for you. Small Business Pro University has self-paced, dynamic, multimedia learning experiences created by more than 20 instructors who are business owners just like you. Small Business Pro University will empower you to become a masterpreneur by learning the secrets to creating a successful enterprise, to go from working in your business to working on your business. Take advantage of our strategic coaching program, or just simply choose the courses that you need. At www.sbprou.com, we will empower you to thrive and not just survive, and make more money in any business environment. Okay, we're back with Marla Currie. We're talking about communication strategies that are effective and how to effectively communicate as a business owner. So maybe as we start out, we talked about there's 7 key communication types that you need to know about. Mm-hmm. Maybe if you could list them, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the different ones in detail. Sound good?
Sounds great. The first one really is just having a basic awareness of good writing. And so, there's just a need to, again, things like being able to spell, sort of knowing grammar. And then there's everyday communication is another, where you are having to respond to letters that you might receive, or documents that you need to write about or explain. And there are 4 different types of letters. The reply letter, the explanation letter, the complaint letter, and then an acknowledgement letter, which is a nice letter to let somebody know that they did a job well. There is marketing content. Naturally, being in business, you want to be able to communicate marketing content. And increasingly, as a small business person, it really behooves you to know the ins and outs of creating marketing content. Not only the various types of content that are out there, everything from sales emails to press releases, to ads. There are a number of a marketing content type of communications that are necessary to know as a business person. Web content is another. I always tell people that have websites, because again, I build them, that's like some prime real estate there on the internet that you own. And, you should be making the most of that website. Many people, put up a site and they leave it. They walk away from it. They don't go back to it for years. And that's missing an opportunity because search engines, Google, loves fresh content. And they also love images. And so it's very easy to update your web content by changing out your images and tagging them with alt text. So web content being one. There's identity communications, which is really just being able to explain who your company is and who you are. There are so many people that have companies that they've never actually sat down and on a piece of paper just said, this is who we are. This is what makes us unique. And commit that unique selling proposition to paper and stick with it. One of my first jobs was working on Procter & Gamble Bounty paper towels. As a young assistant account executive when I first came to New York City. And Bounty was using Rosie, the waitress. I don't know, I'm going back a number of years, but Rosie was the spokesperson in Bounty paper towels commercials, and they used her for decades. But when they threw Rosie overboard, what they didn't throw away was the unique selling proposition for Bounty paper towels, which was the quicker picker-upper. And I was around working with, as a matter of fact, the copywriter that came up with that tagline. And they've been using it for 45 years. So it's very, very important for companies to get into the identity side of communications. And part of that is having a good elevator pitch. You'd be surprised the number of people that you'll go up to at a conference and they just will not know how to explain what their company does. Or and sometimes you are in an elevator with someone and you want to very quickly tell them what you do. And so everybody should have, as a business person, in their back pocket, a 10-second, a 20-second, a 30-second elevator pitch. They should also have a document that they can send out that gets updated, that says who they are and what they do, and whether they're certified and how long they've been in business and who their clients are. That's a document that is a brochure for your company. So when you meet someone that you want to follow up with, you send them a nice, very well designed document that tells people who you are from a identity communication standpoint. Business proposals are an area that business people need to know about. You get that bright idea. How do you sell it? That's your job. You can build a better mousetrap, but you better make sure that you're able to sell that mousetrap. And that's what happens in a business proposal, is that you have to answer three essential questions, which is um, uh, what it is, how much it is, and how much profit is going to be made off of it. And so, there's a need to know how to write a very tight, cohesive business proposal that takes an investor or a bank manager by the hand and show them how they can, why this is a good investment for them. Being able to write a tight business proposal is a key skill for some for a company, for an individual who has ideas. You've got to be able to sell it, and you've got to be able to write it. And then finally, there's the request for proposal. This is a way for a company to go from zero to Fortune 500 by getting a winning bid. And it's not easy to win RFP, but I've had a lot of success in them. I've consistently had RFPs to go to the second round, and so there is a formula for writing an RFP. Some of it involves doing research, researching who that vendor is that is submitting that RFP, trying to find out what their approach is for evaluating vendors, and making sure that when you submit your presentation, that you've sort of hit on those areas that you've identified are of interest to them in terms of how they will choose a vendor. So, you've got those 7 different areas of communications that all business people need to know about.
Okay, no, that's you know key. It sounds like a whole mountain of stuff,
It is.
which on a certain level it kind of is. But it's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Exactly.
So you
Exactly.
got to figure out where to start, because in business and in life, it's always important to pick the best place to start from,
Right. Right.
um, so that it helps you get further along faster. So, since we can't really go into detail on all seven of them,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's really three that are super critical for small business owners.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the first one is identity.
Yeah.
When I'm coaching someone, one of the first things I ask them is, you know, tell me a little bit about you and your business. And I'd say 50% of the time, 5 minutes later or more, I'm
You
still
still
not
don't know
quite
it.
sure what they do.
Exactly. 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 Yeah.
um, so, you know, it's very important to be able to talk clearly and concisely about what you do, because people's attention spans are so short
Yeah,
that
yeah,
unless you are able to communicate effectively, you're going to lose them.
yeah,
So
absolutely, absolutely.
that's key. I came up with a 60-second commercial format, but maybe just talk real quick about, okay, I'm a business owner. How should I figure out how to communicate quickly about my business and who I am?
Well, it really takes the person sitting down with a good old pad and pencil, and determining who they are, what makes them unique, what makes them stand out from other companies that are like them. You don't have to be, one of a kind in business. There are very few companies that are one of a kind. I mean, we've got, you look at the e commerce car industry, there's Carvana, there's Vroom, there are a number of them that are sort of playing on or positioning themselves as low cost. And so they're all in that same swimming pool, but because they've positioned themselves differently, they're able to carve off an audience for themselves, that when they're on television talking about their particular company, there's somebody out there in that audience that's interested only in price, or there's someone out in that audience that's interested in the novelty of getting a car from a vending machine. And so you've got to, as a business person, sit down and figure out who you are, and then do the homework to try to whittle that down in as few words as possible. As I said, I recommend people have a 10-second elevator pitch, that they've got 10 seconds to grab somebody and tell them what they do. And you can't spend 5 minutes when you've only got 10 seconds. And then I recommend that they do a 20-second pitch and a 30-second pitch. Again, telling them a little bit more, but certainly driving home what makes you different. And that difference that a lot of people sort of miss is not what makes me different as a company, but what we do for you that is a difference. Nobody wants you to hear you spout out about how great and wonderful you are. Your widget is. What they want to know is what your widget is going to do for them. And so, as you're writing your elevator pitch, you have to make sure that that pitch focuses in on value for a potential customer, and not, not you, not your features, um, but benefits for a customer.
Okay, no, that's great. Great. I like going back to the old school pen and paper.
Absolutely.
Definitely,
Absolutely.
there's a reason why it worked.
Right.
It works. Um, Business hasn't really changed that much over the years. It's just some of the tools have changed. So,
Absolutely. And
there's
and the pen and the paper, it unlike, I think, even a computer, it's tactile. You're actually touching that surface. Your brain is going and moving that pen, and I think it results in a better thought process. As I said, I just finished up a novel, and most of that novel was written on legal pads. And
hmm
it's 45 chapters written on legal pads. It's a lot of writing,
yeah.
but I mean, you're able to sort of look at it and get a sense of it.
Okay. No, that's cool.
Mhm.
One other thing you mentioned is you really have to have some introspection and
Yeah,
really understand who you are and what you offer,
right.
which is key. Uh, but as well, we want to. I recommend people ask their customers, "Why are you doing business with me?" Because that's really your value proposition.
Yeah, and, and
Because
and sometimes, and sometimes customers will be honest with you, but
right,
sometimes they don't want to hurt your feelings, and so you
true.
might not get the honest answer that you seek. And so it's good to inquire with your customers about what it is where they see the value in your business. But to me, a first step in that is taking a good hard look in the mirror and saying, who am I? Where do we stand? What's the hole, the niche that we feel that nobody else can feel? And once you sort of figure that out, it may start out as a 400-page document, but you keep winnowing it down. And then pretty soon you'll look up and you've got 25 words.
Yeah, it's the hardest thing to write is something short, but
Absolutely.
it's
Absolutely.
extremely powerful when you figure out how to do that. But getting feedback and doing the research along the way helps to make sure that you're aligned.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, too, that's key that once you sort of figured out who you think you are, that's when you go to a client and say, who do you think I am? And if those things don't align, there's a problem there. There's a gap because your perception and their perception aren't meeting. And those things need to be intersecting, if not being on a tangential kind of path that you're both going down the same road in terms of who they think you are and what value you bring to the party.
Right, right. And another thing that I find, and you may as well, is a lot of business owners have multiple businesses, but they don't realize it. But when you write your value proposition out and try to shorten it, you'll notice that you can notice whether things are aligned.
Right, right.
And basically, if you have different products or services that go to different target markets, then really each one of those is a business in itself that
Absolutely.
needs a value proposition. But also, that means you're trying to run multiple businesses at the same time. It's hard to divide yourself that way, and it's
Yeah,
hard.
it is. It's hard. A lot of business people do it. They'll have multiple streams of income, which is always great. But it's important though that you be able to articulate the right um, elevator pitch to the the right potential business person or potential client. You've got a number of different uh, streams of revenue businesses, and you're in an elevator with a potential a client. Well, which one are you going to pull out of your pocket? Because what you don't want to do is give a potential client a laundry list of things you do. Because now you're a jack of all trades and probably a master of none. So, you've got to be able to, um, again, winnow down what that central message is and focus the message. A lot of times, I too will want to tell them all, oh, yes, I do advertising for Fortune 500 companies, and I also do, content writing for small businesses. And so I do tech, I got all these, these pots boiling. And while that's all good, when I'm in a technology conference, I'm not telling anybody I do content writing or advertising for Fortune 500 companies. I stick to the tech conversation. That's the elevator pitch I pull out of my pocket and I stick with it.
Okay. And when you think about it, we're talking about communication that gets results. You have to communicate the right thing to the right people in the right way at the right time. And that
Absolutely.
technology conference, it was a good example that, you know, you knew how and what to communicate in that environment.
Yeah.
But in other environments, there may be a different style, a different content to communicate. And
Absolutely, absolutely. Because depending on where you are and who you might meet, you and sometimes that you can't plan to meet someone. It might be something very impromptu. You bump into somebody um, at a garage sale. I got a really good client at having a garage sale. This person pulled up. They were driving a Tesla. It was like, oh my goodness. In fact, that was the first time I'd ever seen a Tesla. And I was like, wow, that's a great looking car. What do you do? Kind of thing. And they said, oh, I'm in tech. And I'm like, really? So am I. And ended up having them as a client.
Nice.
So yeah, but again, had I started in on, oh, I do advertising for Fortune 500 companies, that tech client never would have bought into it. They weren't looking for that. They were looking for a different kind of a business partner, and so I had to tailor my identity to make sure that client heard what it was that I needed them to hear and that they wanted to hear.
Okay. No, definitely. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, we've covered just the surface of identity communications,
Mm-hmm.
but, we want to talk a little bit about a few other key ones as well. But we're going to take a quick break to learn a little bit about my book that took 5 years to write called Running Your Small Business Like a Pro. So, I could feel your pain.
Exactly.
And then we're going to come back and talk about communications for web content because, as you mentioned, that's super important, valuable real estate that, you can create the value and use it to its highest use if you're able to communicate effectively. So we're going to come back and talk about how do you do that, or what are some of the things you should be thinking about right after this.
Growing revenue, increasing profitability, and obtaining financing are the results of running your small business like a pro.
This is really the path to achieving the success that most entrepreneurs and business owners are looking to achieve. But it's a path where most people get stuck between step one and step two. Businesses close every day because their owners were not able to create a successful, sustainable enterprise. If you do not create an enterprise, the only way that you can sell your business successfully is you sell yourself with it.
This book is a common sense guide for learning how to run your small business as a professional enterprise.
You can pick up the book as a new entrepreneur or as a seasoned entrepreneur and get something out of it. It's very educational.
It provides a fundamental understanding of the challenges small businesses face with real-world solutions that drive results.
Life examples of what happens in business with cash flow, handling money, very, very accurate. And they were experiences that I've had.
Structure. If I do a shoot, I know that there are certain steps that I have to take to get me to where I need to go. But when it comes to business, I didn't have the same sense of what needed to be done. Andrew helped me see systems, the steps we take to grow a business. So he's helped systematize it.
I worked with a client who was looking to retire and sell his business and expected to get over $500,000 for it. However, when I assessed the business and looked to figure out what the value was, it was less than $100,000. Why was this? Because he didn't create an enterprise. The business was centered around him, and without him, there wasn't a business. This book helps you to understand how to create an enterprise where it can run successfully without you.
Get your copy today. Andrew Frazier's new book online at www.runningyoursmallbusinesslikeapro.com. Also available on Amazon.
Welcome back to Leadership Live at 8:05. I'm here with Marla Currie, president of Tag on the Web, and we're talking about business writing that gets results. And some of the most important and valuable writing is your web content and your digital communications. And that's a different type of writing than writing an essay. Different than your personal identity communication or your elevator pitch. Maybe some similarities in content, But talk a little bit about, you know, when you're communicating for your website or digitally, you know, what are some of the best practices? What should you be thinking about? You know, how should you approach it?
One of the best things that any website owner can do is, I think I mentioned this earlier, change your images. You can, fool, if you will, a search engine by having new images. You can keep the same content, but just change the images. That's a very easy way to update your website. Another thing is to make sure that your content is using current industry jargon. You know the buzzwords that right now. Digital transformation is one of them. Wheelhouse is one of them. Those little buzzwords in your content that tells a visitor that you are up to date with what's going on in that industry. So, make sure that if you are updating different parts of your website, that you do use, current jargon in your industry. Um, a website is, as I mentioned, it's real estate. It's very valuable, and most people don't look at it that way. They look at it as a brochure that they, put on a shelf and just, sort of go back to it in 10 years or so. And that's not good. I recommend that people change their websites, that they update them every 2 to 3 years. But again, in between that time, you need to be putting in new images, updating articles, and it's not too difficult to do. You can use the same content, but just switch it around a little bit, just so that someone comes to your site and it looks fresh. And people, you want your site to be sticky, and that means you want people to stick around. Having someone driving traffic to your site and they just immediately bounce does no good for you. You want to engage that person. Maybe there's something there that they can participate in, a survey, a questionnaire, commenting on something, giving them something to engage them will create loyalty and long-term clients for you. So that website is extremely valuable. Now, in terms of writing content for your website, you can get someone to write for you. You don't, as a business person, you don't want to turn into a writer. That's the thing that I have to tell, most business people is that, you can get into this business to, for instance, be a social media person, because once you get on social media, it becomes very demanding and you have to be there. And to do it right, that takes several hours a day. And it can eat up a whole week just trying to stay updated with posting what you're doing, talking about what you did, and so it's good to look for outside resources for those kinds of things to provide you with content, and social media being a big one, that everyone is on that platform right now, that they feel they need to be a part of a social network, a community of people who think like them, and that's a wonderful thing for your business. But you have to always be updating your social media messages. That means new articles. Maybe you're not necessarily writing articles, but you're sourcing them, something you read. You put a link to it on your social media page. Something, a conference that you go to or about to go to. You do a little blurb about it, that it's upcoming, or this is what you got out of it. This is who you met. Again, just providing that content on social media that is going to be useful to a potential client. A lot of people, you know, doing social media for a business and doing it for your personal self is quite different. Nobody wants to see what you had for dinner last night or the outfit you are going to purchase. So you really have to make sure that the content is relevant. If you're in an academic space, for example, you've got to have academic articles that you're talking about on social media, and be talking about academic subjects. You ultimately want to persuade, inform, and entertain someone when they visit your social media pages. And you should have social media pages, and you should have a number of them. If you've got two or three companies, or a company that has a number of different products, all of your best-selling products should have their own pages. So, again, it can be very time-consuming to keep it all up. That's the reason why people go outside and hire social media managers to manage their pages, manage their community, because they just really don't have the time to do it. But it's worthwhile. Another thing that, from a web content standpoint, is really needed are landing pages. Again, if you've got different products, all of your primary products should have their own landing page. And that's a page devoted exclusively to that particular product, where you're able to talk about it, sell its features, show it in different angles, have people, give their recommendations about it. And then you use that landing page as a tool to get maybe people for your email list, your sales email list. So the landing page, the social media content, as well as your website from a web content standpoint, those are the most important areas.
Okay. No, you shared a whole bunch of great information there. I'm just going to pick out a few pieces just to, emphasize. And, one of the things you talked about is getting help.
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot more in that space over the last year or two. And, I've gotten help, which has really been able to expand my capability and, have people who do it all day long, so they can do a better job at it than me as well. But that being said, you can't get help and abdicate everything to them,
No.
because they can't do a good job for you unless they know and understand and get your guidance and feedback.
That's where the leadership comes in. You've still got to be the leader. You've got a social media manager, but you just can't turn that person loose on your social media pages. You may get a client and say, what the hell is this? You've got porno on your site or something. You can't do that. You've got to be, again, in that leadership role where you're setting the strategy, or maybe that individual is setting it and you are agreeing to it. And they're developing maybe an editorial calendar for your social media pages, but you're looking at that calendar and saying, yeah, okay, I agree with this. But before you send anything out, I need to co-sign on what it is you're sending out. So, you put guardrails around it. But having that help, it's critical. You can't do it all. And too many small business people think that they can, and they end up not doing the best job of anything.
Right. But sometimes you have no choice early
True.
on.
True.
So,
Very true.
but the key is you don't have to do everything, but what you do it well, because it's your brand.
And you'd be surprised the sources of free help that are out there. You can put a little blurb in Craigslist and tell someone that you want a non-paid intern. You'd be surprised at the number of people with jobs that will say, can I do this because I want to get into that business? And so they see working for you for free as a way for them to, be able to say they've got valid experience in that industry. So, they're sources. You can go to college campuses and say, think any college kids want to do this kind of, work with me on this? You'd be surprised.
Okay, excellent, excellent. So yeah, so we covered that in decent detail. We got a few more things to talk about, but time is always against us. It seems like an hour is like a whole long time, but we're getting close. But one thing I want to just touch on, because it's important to every business owner, is getting business. And one of the most important things to get in business is having a good business proposal. So maybe if you could take a sec and just say a little bit about what goes into a good business proposal, or what you should be thinking about when you're writing your business proposals.
Yeah, when you're writing a business proposal, your job is to sell it. That is, your job first and foremost. And so you have to, as a writer, I always thought of myself when I'm writing big documents like that as, I'm Perry Mason. My job is to go into this courtroom and prove this case. And so when I'm writing these documents, I put on my Perry Mason hat, and, it's like, just the facts. Let me tell you what the facts are. Now, one of the things that is extremely important when you are doing a business proposal is that you have documentation. Nobody wants to read about your great widget if you don't have the data and the facts to back up why that's a good proposal. And there are tons of sources for getting information that you can use in a document, and you can get them for free. The US government is an excellent resource. They put out tons of information on different industries. And so when you are putting together your proposal, one of the first sections should be an analysis of the industry. So, whether it's the pizza selling business, or the shoe selling business, or a tech business, having that upfront analysis and saying, we know what's going on. Here's what's going on. And then from a macro standpoint, which is what that is, a macro business analysis, you go down and then you start talking about the micro business environment. And the micro business is looking at who the players are. In the pizza industry, okay, you've got Pizza Hut, you've got Domino's, you've got so and so over here on the corner that's selling pizza. Well, you look at all the dynamics of the macro industry, because what you're doing is, again, you're making that case for where you can fit in this business realm with something new. Then finally, and once you've got the macro and you've got the micro analysis, then you start actually getting into, okay, well, what are you selling? And that's when it's very important to be able to present the case logically. You cannot be jumping all over the place as you are talking about your idea. And it's got to flow. It's got to be concrete. There's got to be a rhythm to how you present that idea. And that's, looking at it from again, a big standpoint, how many people are in this business, down to what is the niche that you're trying to fill. And then once you've sort of gotten that part of the proposal down, what the big idea is, one of the key things about a proposal is the financials. The second question out of a potential investor's mouth is, well, what are we going to have to pay to realize this? And, and how long it's going to take. So you've got to be able to sit down with your calculator and that good old pencil again, and do some guessing. Well, just how much will it cost to manufacture this? And how long will it take us to show a profit? And what's the likelihood that competitors are going to react? Because if you are trying to do something where there's strong competitors, they're not just going to sit back and let you come in and take their market. And so having a proposal that touches on who the competitors are, what you think their response is going to be, but then also what it takes from an R&D, an investment standpoint to get that idea going. How much money you actually need, and that's counting up the pennies. What is it going to take for warehouse space, for manufacturing, personnel, running the office, taxes, lawyers, accountants. You got to sum it all up and put it in a document and be able to present that financial piece of a business proposal very clearly and very comprehensively. And it's okay to say that everything's not going to be rosy, because it's not. There are very few new ideas out here, unless you're in the tech space, that are, everything old is new again, in a sense, in a business proposal. So, you don't have to say, oh, it's going to be great. You can say, yeah, here are the challenges, but here's how we think we can get around them. Any investor, any banker will appreciate the fact that you were honest enough to, present a real landscape about what the environment might be for this business idea, and your solution for getting around that. And you should also have a timetable. Make sure you've got a timetable, because you want to be able to say how long this is going to take. What's the ramp up? How long it's going to take for you to get on board? How long it's going to be before you actually start showing profit? Your mic.
Definitely, doing a business proposal is key, and doing a good one is even better.
Right.
So these are a few pointers, but there's so much that you need to know to do that. So how do you learn or understand or gain the knowledge to do that? Well, that's part of what Small Business Pro University is all about. And we are excited that Marla has agreed to be one of our instructors, and actually is putting together a course on effective communications that get results. So, some of the things you've heard here, that's just scratching the surface, but there's a lot more that you can learn about these things that can help you with your business. So she's working on putting the course together now, and we'll be getting it up on the university, and once it's launched, we'll definitely share information about it. But definitely, your communication is critical. You can't market effectively.
No.
You can't sell effectively without communicating effectively. And now more than ever, you need to get results, and you can't do that without knowing what to do and how to do it. So, thank you, Marla, for taking time out of your busy schedule and really sharing some valuable insights. Thank you, the audience. We've got guests from Atlanta, Pittsburgh, New York, North Carolina, Texas, and other places. So thank you for listening in. Thank you for your comments. Definitely check us out, and we'll definitely let you know when Marla's course launches. But before we go, Marla, you want to just sum up, real quick, a few key takeaways for people, so that they can just have that fresh in their mind. Where can they start, or where should they start?
As a business owner, it's extremely important for you to not be intimidated by writing, and whether that is an email or a proposal, a response to an RFP, or just sitting down and really putting a ringer around who you are. Writing should be something that you're comfortable with. And our schools today don't focus in on writing the way they used to. And so there's a gap in knowledge in many people's toolbox. And so this course was designed really to fulfill, to help close that gap, to give people information that they can use in their business. The entire course is about writing for business. And so, from A to Z, from articles to RFPs, we cover how to write, what the secrets are to writing, strategies for winning, pro tips about, how to name documents, how to label documents so that you can find them later. Just a lot of tips that ultimately will lead to someone being a more productive, more effective writer of business communications.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. You know, definitely I've learned a few things that I'm going to put to work, and I'm sure you have too. And once again, thanks to Marla Currie for just being here this evening, talking about business writing that gets results and gets the results that you want to have for growing your business. So definitely each week we have special guests. And actually next week is a great follow on to this week because we've got Stan Robinson, and he's going to be talking about prospecting like a pro. And his expertise is in the online side as well. So really taking those communications and making them work effectively. So those go hand in hand. And like I always say, your most important job is S&M, sales and marketing, and these are important pieces of being able to do that effectively. So always love to come out on Tuesday nights, really Leadership Live, talk about small business because that's what it's really all about. And just remember, at the end of the day, the more you know, the faster you grow.
Thank you for listening to Leadership Live at 8:05, Talking Small Business. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Leadership Live is one of the many valuable resources provided through the Small Business Pro University, empowering business owners to learn, profit, and grow. Find out more at sbpro.u.com.